time of writing, Marvel Studios' latest magnum opus, The Avengers, has just crossed the $1 billion mark at the box office, and there's even talks of it possibly beating Avatar to being the highest grossing movie of all time. Whether you like the movie or not, there is no disputing the fact that this is the peak of superheroes gaining recognition in the popular culture. But The Avengers isn't just another superhero film, it just so happens to be a team-up movie, where superheroes from 4 different movie franchises have banded together into one awesome experience. Hollywood will obviously be trying to make the most of these team-up concepts and apply the formula to future blockbusters. While people seem to hate comparing video games to movies, which I find incredibly ironic considering how goddamned hard modern video games themselves are trying to copy the movies, I feel like video games could stand to learn a few things from the Avengers and improve the quality of their crossover games. Now, video game crossovers aren't unheard of or even a relatively new concept. Recent examples are Street Fighter X Tekken and the upcoming Professor Layton vs Phoenix Wright, but there are many other franchises that have combined together to create awesome game experiences, mainly in the realm of fighting and party games, with games such as Mortal Kombat, who have teamed up with Freddy Krueger and DC Universe, Marvel vs Capcom, Sega Superstar, King of Fighters, Soul Calibur, Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, and the granddaddy of them all, Super Smash Bros., the latter of which almost didn't get a release outside of Japan because Nintendo didn't think the game would sell. Well, they got proven spectacularly wrong. So if video games have already had numerous successes with crossovers, then why do I feel video games could stand to learn a thing or two from the Avengers? Well, because 90% of crossovers do jack shit with the concept. However, some crossovers do make the most of the potential. The Super Smash Bros. Series takes some of the most iconic characters in video games and pits them together in hyperactive Royal Rumbles. The music is remixed by some of the best video game composers in the industry, and the latest iteration, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, included a fully fledged campaign mode with a story and a great narrative and gorgeous cutscenes. There's also the Kingdom Hearts series, which combines Final Fantasy and Disney characters to tell great stories with great JRPG gameplay. Both of those examples not only have great gameplay, but they fully utilize their respective franchises in the aesthetics of the game. Both games just drip with iconic imagery that fans of the series love. Now just compare that to, say, Marvel vs Capcom 3 and Ultimate Marvel vs Capcom 3. You have these two companies banding together to create a fighting game for the next generation, and with the exception of the characters, there's hardly any sort of identity. With the exception of the opening cinematics, there isn't an engaging, crazy as hell storyline, there's no context for the teams being put together, and the fighting is all there is. If I wanted fighting, I could play hundreds of other games. If I want to watch Ryu exchange witty banter with Wolverine or watch She-Hulk and Phoenix Wright battle in the courtroom, then I want to see that in Marvel vs Capcom, but the game completely wastes its awesome premise. Sure, the fighting system is undeniably great, but really, when you take that out of the equation, there's not really anything the game can brag about. And it's not like creating a narrative or a campaign for these characters would be difficult to do. For God's sake, Warner Brothers haven't been able to make an above average DC comic book movie other than Batman, but their video game division can create a cheesy and fun story that combines DC and Mortal Kombat.
Our enemy is called Dark Khan.
Whereas Marvel vs Capcom 3's attempts at a story just come across as a glorified set of PowerPoint presentations. Admittedly, the story mode for Street Fighter X Tekken is more of a framework, but at least it offered actual cutscenes and character interactions. Mario and Sonic have been two of the biggest rivals in video game history, so when they teamed up back in 2007, it was a big deal. But many eyebrows were raised when it was revealed that Mario and Sonic would be teaming up for the 2008 Olympics. Okay then, that was a fun novelty. At least it was for the first time. 3 games later, and we have to ask, where is the full Mario and Sonic team-up adventure game? Both Nintendo and Sega are on good terms with each other, but why do they insist on taking these two huge franchises and then slap on a ho-hum minigame compilation on top? I've seen internet fan fiction more compelling than this, and because the games are taking place at real life events with real life sports, it means that they're too grounded to make the most of their iconography, with the exception of the Dream events, but those efforts seem slapdash at best. The recent Alien vs Predator game did a similar thing. Now, I've not played the original game, I'm talking about the 2010 release, so for all I know, maybe the previous games did it better, but apart from when you're playing as the Predator, the game lacked any sort of good gameplay. It was just a hodgepodge of genres that was pretty hit or miss, in my opinion. So what am I getting at here? Well, the way I see it, if you're a game developer and you have two different franchises to put in a game, then just go nuts. Don't just create a party game or a fighting game and leave it at that. The main reason crossovers exist is to please fanboys and people who love the franchises, so make the most of it and show that love in return. Give us a fully fledged story mode, epic adventures that are too big for just one franchise to handle. Also, why just stop at fighting or party games? Why not have epic adventures with loads of action and huge expansive worlds? You could even combine the two villains from the two respective franchises as antagonists. The reason certain franchises have become popular enough to warrant a video game crossover in the first place is because they have compelling worlds and characters that inhabit it. Why just show one screenshot of it, put it in the background, and there you go, that's your arena? Let's up the ante a bit. Let's not forget that franchises and characters don't just have visual motifs and interesting movesets that could be applied to video games, but they also have personalities, their own set of values, and companies really need to utilise that aspect in future games. And I know there's going to be some people that think that we need to focus on the gameplay and we don't need interactions and stories because that's for movies and such, but think about that. Do you honestly think we're going to get a Marvel vs. Capcom movie or a Soul Calibur movie? No, of course not, so it's up to video games to pick up the slack and present the players with scenarios that they can't get or experience anywhere else. There are rumours circulating that Nintendo are going to announce a Star Fox and Metroid crossover title for the Wii U to be developed by Retro Studios. If that's the case, then we are going to be treated to a fantastic game, and hopefully it will utilise both franchises in a satisfying way. Right now, with only a few exceptions, it just seems like developers aren't really doing all they can when presented with brilliant opportunities to do something that no other form of media can do, and we're doing a disservice to the industry and the franchises by not making the best crossovers we possibly can. Well, that's all I have to say. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to watch the gameplay for the abandoned Avengers movie tie-in game and cry into my pillow at night at the thought of what could have been. I'll see you guys next time.